The polished mahogany door of the Wang family estate felt impossibly heavy under Wang Yibo's hand. He turned to Xiao Zhan, a flicker of nervous energy in his usually composed eyes. "Ready?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. Xiao Zhan offered a reassuring smile, squeezing Yibo's hand. For months, they had kept their love a quiet sanctuary, a hidden garden of shared moments and stolen glances. This was the night they were going to lay it all bare, to ask for the blessing they craved but feared they would never receive. Yibo had prepared for the usual objections, the pressures of their careers, the relentless scrutiny of the public eye, but he was certain his parents, who had always valued his happiness above all else, would see the truth in their connection. He pushed the door open. The dining room was a portrait of reserved elegance. The scent of roasted duck and fine wine hung in the air, but the atmosphere was stiff and formal. Yibo's mother, a woman of impeccable grace, offered a tight smile. His father, a formidable figure who commanded respect with a single glance, nodded curtly. They sat down to dinner, the conversation polite but hollow, like a rehearsed play. Yibo and Xiao Zhan exchanged nervous glances across the table. They tried to steer the conversation toward their shared dreams, their future, but the air remained thick with an unspoken tension. Finally, Yibo couldn't bear it any longer. He set down his chopsticks, the sound echoing in the silence. "Father, mother," he began, his voice firm, "there's something we need to tell you. Xiao Zhan and I are in a relationship. We are very serious about our future together." The silence that followed was deafening. The polite masks of Yibo's parents cracked, revealing a deep-seated sadness and something else entirely, a flicker of cold, hard steel in his father's eyes. His mother looked down at her plate, her hands trembling. "Yibo," his father finally said, his voice stripped of all warmth, "you know we want you to be happy. But this is a line you cannot cross." "Why?" Yibo's heart hammered against his ribs. "Is it because of our professions? Or the public? We are prepared for all of that." "It has nothing to do with that," his mother said, her voice strained. "It has nothing to do with your career. It has nothing to do with who you love." "Then what is it?" Xiao Zhan interjected, a cold knot forming in his stomach. The casual disapproval he had braced for was nothing like the profound, almost terrified resistance he was now witnessing. Yibo's father leaned forward, his gaze fixed on Xiao Zhan. "Zhan," he said, using the casual form of his name for the first time, a gesture that was somehow more chilling than a formal address. "Do you know who your grandfather was? Your mother's father." The question was so utterly out of place, so bizarre, that Xiao Zhan could only stare. "He was a university professor," he replied, a memory of a kind, scholarly man with a gentle laugh. "He passed away many years ago." A humorless smile touched the corner of Yibo's father's mouth. "Yes, that is what he was in the end. A professor. But before that, he was a different kind of man. He was the head of a powerful and ruthless criminal organization, a man who built his empire on secrets and betrayal." Xiao Zhan's world tilted. "That's impossible," he whispered, a denial escaping his lips before he could process the words. "My grandfather was a good man. A scholar. You must have him confused with someone else." Yibo's mother finally looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "No. The name, the family name, it is unmistakable. It is a name our family has carried the weight of for decades. Your grandfather was the man who orchestrated the downfall of our family's company, not with force, but with a series of perfectly timed, brutal betrayals. It was a scandal that nearly destroyed us. It drove Yibo's grandfather, my own father, to an early grave." The room spun around Yibo. He had never heard any of this. The family's old wealth and influence had always been a quiet, solid foundation. He had been taught that their prosperity was built on hard work and business acumen. He had never been told the darker, more violent story of how it had almost been torn down. Yibo's father continued, his voice heavy with a pain that was decades old. "The documents, the evidence, they all disappeared. The authorities could never prove it was him, but we knew. We had a lifetime of evidence. The name, it's a ghost that has haunted us. And now to see you, Yibo, bringing someone with that name into our home, it's a wound we can't reopen." A sickening dread settled over Xiao Zhan. The man he knew as a kind, gentle grandfather, a man who had taught him how to paint and appreciate classical poetry, was suddenly a stranger, a ghost with a terrifying history. He looked at Wang Yibo, who was just as pale and shocked as he was. Yibo's father pulled a drawer from a side table and produced an old, faded photograph. He held it out. It was a photo of two men standing together, one of them Yibo's grandfather, the other a younger, more intense version of Xiao Zhan's grandfather, but with a malevolent glint in his eyes that he had never seen before. On the back, in a spidery script, were the words, "The betrayal that cannot be forgiven." "This is not who I am," Xiao Zhan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea. This has nothing to do with us." "But it does," Yibo's mother cried out, a sob escaping her lips. "The past is a chain, and we have been dragged by it for so long. We cannot see you chained to it as well, through a name, through a bloodline. The pain is too much to bear. Yibo, please, listen to us. Break this off. For your own sake, for our sake." Wang Yibo stood up, his hand still holding Xiao Zhan's, their fingers intertwined like a lifeline. He looked at his parents, at the deep-seated fear and sorrow in their eyes, and then at Xiao Zhan, whose face was a mixture of shock and profound sadness. The choice was not between love and family, but between two generations of pain. "Father, mother," he said, his voice clear and resolute despite the tremor in his heart. "The past is not the present. Xiao Zhan is not his grandfather. You are asking me to pay for a sin I didn't commit, with a love that is more real than anything you can show me. I cannot." He gently pulled Xiao Zhan up, and together, they walked out of the opulent dining room, leaving behind a silence that was heavier and more final than any slammed door. The secret had been revealed, not as a weapon, but as a devastating, inherited curse. And they would have to find their way forward, not in a world of simple disapproval, but in a world where their love was forever tied to a shocking, unwritten history of betrayal and revenge. The mahogany door clicked shut behind them, severing Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan from the suffocating history contained within the mansion's walls. The silence in Yibo's car was thick with unspoken shock. Xiao Zhan stared out the window at the city lights, which blurred into streaks of color, unable to reconcile the kind man from his childhood memories with the ruthless criminal his family had just been accused of being. The generational pain, the profound and seemingly insurmountable obstacle, had been laid bare in a single, devastating moment. It was no longer about public opinion. It was about a deeply personal and ancient wound. Yibo broke the silence, his voice raw with a fury Xiao Zhan had never heard before. "I can't believe they hid this from me my entire life. They've let this poison fester and turn into something monstrous." He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "This isn't just about us. It's about a secret that has been haunting our families for decades." He pulled the car over to the side of the road, turning to face Xiao Zhan. "Zhan, please, tell me what you're thinking. Say something." Xiao Zhan's voice was a whisper. "I'm thinking about the stories my grandfather told me. Stories about starting a new life, about leaving the past behind, about making something honest out of nothing. I always thought he meant leaving poverty behind. I never knew he meant leaving a criminal past." A tear traced a path down his cheek. "It doesn't make sense. The man who taught me to paint, who gave me my first set of brushes, who would sit for hours just to listen to me play the guqin, he wasn't that man." Yibo reached out, his hand gently tracing the tear track on Xiao Zhan's face. "The past is a weight we cannot carry alone. We have to face this together." The next few days were a blur of research, late-night phone calls, and hushed conversations with their most trusted friends. Yibo, using his family's connections, began digging into the old scandal, poring over archived newspaper articles and cryptic court documents. Xiao Zhan, for his part, delved into old family records, looking for anything, a letter, a diary, that might provide context or a different perspective on his grandfather. They worked in tandem, driven by a shared need to uncover the full truth, not just the one-sided story told by Yibo's parents. The more they discovered, the more complex the narrative became. It wasn't a simple case of a hero and a villain. The betrayal had been real, but the circumstances surrounding it were shrouded in a complex web of corporate espionage and political maneuvering. The criminal organization was a brutal, ambitious business syndicate, and Xiao Zhan's grandfather, while its leader, had acted in a way he believed was to protect his family and legacy, even if it meant ruthless measures. The documents hinted at a deep, personal rivalry between the two men, not just a business transaction. The investigation became a journey of self-discovery for both of them. Yibo found a strength and determination he never knew he had, pushing against the decades of silence and fear that his family had cultivated. XiaoZhan had to confront a part of his lineage he found deeply unsettling, but in doing so, he also found a newfound respect for the complexities of human nature and the sacrifices people make for their families. Their love, once a secret, now became a partnership built on a shared mission to rewrite a tragic history. The discovery of each new detail, each new piece of the puzzle, became a victory for their relationship. They were no longer just two people in love, they were a team, united against a ghost from the past. The digital world, a place Wang Yibo and XiaoZhan had always carefully navigated, became their new battleground. The family secret, once a private curse, was leaked to the public in a meticulously crafted exposé. The article didn't just hint at the rivalry between their grandfathers, it published the faded photograph and hinted at the darker, more violent undercurrents of the past. The headline screamed, "Generational Grudge, the secret history behind Yibo and XiaoZhan's alleged romance." The article painted a dramatic narrative of revenge, framing their relationship not as genuine love, but as a calculated act of corporate espionage, with Yibo being used to lure a member of his rival's family into the fold. Social media exploded. Fans were divided, some fiercely defending the two men, others succumbing to the sensationalized narrative. The rumor mill went into overdrive, creating a toxic mix of speculation and judgment. For the first time, Yibo and XiaoZhan were fighting not just for their love, but for their reputations and the narrative of their lives. The backlash was swift and brutal. Brand deals were put on hold, film projects were delayed, and their managers were in a state of constant crisis management. This public firestorm was a new kind of pressure, a cruel twist of the knife after they had begun to heal from the private pain. The world watched, waiting for them to break, to confirm the scandalous story, or to simply disappear. But this time, they weren't alone. They had each other. In a live broadcast that was scheduled to promote a new single, they decided to take back the narrative. Without a pre-written script, they went live, sitting side by side, their hands clasped tightly. Wang Yibo spoke first, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "What you're reading is a version of history, a story that has caused our families a lot of pain. But it is not our story. Our story is about finding a bond that transcends generations of conflict. It is a bond of mutual respect and love." XiaoZhan then spoke, his words calm and sincere. "We are not our grandfathers. We are our own people. We will not allow the past to dictate our present or our future. We are not afraid to face our history, but we refuse to be defined by it." The broadcast went viral. It was a raw, honest, and unprecedented move that shocked the public and began to turn the tide. They had finally taken back their lives.